Music Appreciation 101.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Love Music More. I am Scoobert Doobert, and I'm joined with an awesome guest, Dominic Fallacaro. We are going to be talking all sorts of music, Broadway, Tonys, Grammys, all of the adaptations and arrangement and just wonderful parts of what you do with music that's so different than what I do. So I'm just so excited to pick your brain. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you too, Dom. So I would love to just kind of kick it off with talking about your musical journey. How did you end up kind of in the world that you're in with arranging and working with Broadway and stuff? What was the path that led you into that very interesting musical space?
So it's been sort of a winding and sort of like say yes to life sort of approach.
Cool.
I mean, I started playing piano. I studied classical piano for a number of years. I got into jazz music in high school, and then I studied it and came to New York to go to college to study it in New York City. And from there, leaving college, and even during college, it was sort of like a hodgepodge of just play every gig possible, do whatever you can to like stay here and subsist on a life of music. And it was everything from playing club dates and gigs to private events and like whatever cocktail hour needed jazz piano and doing that. And then
Cool.
I really found a passion of being in the recording studio, and I really loved producing music and being with artists, and I just became infatuated with it. And through that, I really started to go from more like fronting bands to being involved in the studio and producing. And through that, I worked with an artist named Tim Coobert, who was very passionate about children's music.
Great.
And
Awesome.
through that, we made a number of records together. One of those won a Grammy in 2016. And through that, we started writing music for Sesame Street. And through that, I met my now longtime collaborator, Bill Sherman, who supervises music on Sesame Street. And he told me about this musical with Max Martin. And it's just been, I had never had any aim necessarily for Broadway specifically, but working with Max was a no-brainer of no-brainers. And
Totally.
it's led me on this 7-year journey of sort of learning the ins and outs of theater. And it's been amazing. It's sort of been all of my sort of development, all of the skills that used to happen separately all have to kind of get combined together to do what Juliet is on Broadway. So it's been a fantastic journey.
That's so awesome. That's a super great recap. Let's dig into a few of those individual points. I would love to kind of hear about your take on children's music and kind of how do you approach that creative process with such a specific audience?
Yeah, definitely. It's such an interesting medium because it's a double-edged sword in the sense that it's one of the few kinds of music that will remain timeless. Like there will always be children, and there will always be the need for music for them. And so on one hand, you have this infinity sort of relevance, which other genres and other things may come and go, and you have to sort of find your own routes through that sort of relevance. And on the other hand, your audience turns over every, 2, 3, however many years. They're no longer interested in what that is. And, I met my now longtime friend, Tim Coobert, doing it. And again, children's music wasn't necessarily something that was an aim of mine, but Tim was very passionate about it. And it wasn't a means to an end. It wasn't a springboard to go elsewhere. It was something like he wanted to deliver this music to kids and also wanted to kind of find a way of straddling the line of bringing pop music into that space and bringing trying to marry very genuine songwriting and very meaningful themes of family and home and other things, but also make it sound like what they kids are used to listening to. And the goal being whatever your older sibling is, their music that you're trying to sort of leech onto with sort of messages that are relevant. And it's both music for kids and music about being a kid too. And so I think there is sort of a Pixar split of age gap where it's it is for here, but like if you're really listening, it's up here too. And like all those things sort of firing together made me very interested in it. It was just a unique project like nothing else, and it's been amazing. Like it has opened so many interesting doors, and we've made so much great music together and done so many cool things, from playing Lollapalooza to like just all sorts of other stuff, and Sesame Street, which is just like outrageous sort of thing to be able to do. Like all of a sudden you write something down and then Elmo is singing it. Like who would have thought?
That's so awesome. No, and it's fun to think about, because music is, as a child, music is so important to your development, and kind of one of my friends just had kids, and that's all he does. He just sings like all day the songs that he learns from children's music. It's like, what an impact that you have on somebody's life to be able to provide music for that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it can be so big. I mean, it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. I mean, music, it really makes you attuned to how like kind of steeped a child is in that, and like your brain is so squishy then, and like seeking new things, and it's an important sort of like vessel and thing to be able to provide sort of that kind of like no shade to anything else, but like to try and really give like a meaningful dish of both message and like a certain kind of music to that audience as well.
Has it changed the way that you listen to children's music now that you make it?
Definitely. I also really respect that, like, being exposed to the genre, so much of children's music is independent artists. I mean, there obviously is the large umbrella that exists under Disney, and that's its sort of like own thing. But like, so much of children's music that like exists both locally and nationally is independent artists just doing their thing because they want to do it. And it's like, it's either someone that's been passionate for a long time that's been channeling this, or someone that became a parent is like, there is a void here and I want to fill it. And like, it's just an interesting world of like passionate people. And I think I'm always drawn to people that are kind of seeking that out and like trying to deliver that, like really, have a real reason to put it out in the world. And to me, I like when I can treat it no different than any other artist project. It's just like, let's really, like, I have something to say and it needs to go here. And this lane just happens to be for children. And it's been such an interesting kind of world to learn about.
Yeah. Yes. No, totally. I mean, one of the things I remember hearing, I don't know, early high school or junior high or something, it was Jack Johnson did the soundtrack to Curious George. And that was like a little light bulb for me of like, hey, this genre can be really cool. Like there is a way to do this that is awesome and artistically satisfying, for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, kids are very smart. And also now you're competing with the blue light of cell phones from a young age. It's like, you gotta like their smell test of like what is good or what is genuine is pretty like robust. And so I think it is like, like that project of Curious George kind of has relevance because it is sort of operating at a certain kind of wavelength. It is like very genuine and like heartfelt. There's a million different versions of The Wheels on the Bus, but like, can you kind of say your own sort of thing through it? And people have found lots of different niches in that. It's an interesting space.
That definitely is. And I'm curious, how do you see what the odd, like, do you focus group it or do you show it to kids? Like, how do you kind of get that feedback loop? I'm super curious.
I mean, there is nothing like a live audience of children.
Cool.
I mean, we played, Lollapalooza, the Kennedy Center, like so many interesting kind of places, but like also you play an outdoor thing and you're next to the bouncy house and like, good luck competing with that. Like, good luck. And like, if they don't want to dance, then there's something happening. You can't like force these moments. So you sort of, like, that is the ultimate sort of like focus group testing, whatever. It's like, it has to work on its feet. And you sort of like, you develop this material that translates in that way. And there's definitely also songs that we build for the records only. And then certain things where it's like, oh, this will be great up on its feet live. And we'll open it up and like kind of make it more call and response or other sorts of things. And yeah, like that's a lot of like learning by doing. It's been very, like you make records and it is sort of like a go out into the world and try it out.
Cool. That's super fascinating. That's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
In terms of your then journey to working on and Juliet with Max Martin's source material and translating that into a narrative and adding strings. And I was watching one of your interviews talking about how adding those strings and pulling out some of that emotion and adding that narrative to it. How do you then approach now a very different medium, but still same underlying things? You have great source melodies that are known, but you also have to have it stand on its own feet. From the jump, what you get that challenge. How do you start to internalize that? What's your process?
One of the coolest things is that this project came into my life and was immediately sent like all the multi-tracks, all the stems to everything. So it was like the dream grad school I could have never even imagined is like, how would you like to listen to the bass on Hit Me Baby One More Time? How would you like to solo the vocals on Teenage Dream? It's like, cool. I would love to do that.
Yes.
And so really delving as deep as one can go into the source material. And like, it was important to me to sort of know it better than anyone in the room, to be able to like be like, oh, like if we're doing this song, like here is the melody, here are the things that are important to that melody, here are the counter lines, here's the other things that is the bedrock of this song that supports it. I think early on in the orchestration part of it, Bill and I learned we were very fortunate to do a music lab where we were able to set a band up in a recording studio and sort of like play what we were thinking for Max. Because like, here's all this stuff played by human beings in a room. Like, what do you think? Like, it's a body of music that's unbelievable and so celebrated. But most of it lives inside of a computer, and now you need to execute it with human beings.
Yes.
And we learned really quickly that if we were going to go close to the source material, let's go all the way. And we're working with someone that remembers the synthesizer preset, that remembers all these other things. And if we want to get, not to get too granular, but like, whatever plugin is on this thing, we're using it. Like we're really like trying to do as good faith effort to be as close as possible. When we start It's My Life, it's not sort of kind of the talk box. It is the exact talk box. It is like, to do it exactly right. And then he encouraged us, it's like, if we're going to go far, like really swing big, go really far. And so when we do Baby One More Time, when we do Teenage Dreams, we take what as that like iconic guitar intro, and it's like, how would it feel in pizzicato strings and like as very like very small as possible, and sort of like walking that kind of pendulum from song to song and moment to moment. You're sort of letting the story guide you in those decisions. But it was cool because when we wanted to go close, we could lean on Max. We could go back into the stems. We could find the things that we needed. And if we wanted to go far, we have an amazing band at our disposal, and we can use our strings. We can use all these instruments to kind of deliver us these sounds.
Did you audition that band? How does that work in terms of like kind of getting your players?
So it is on Broadway and in the West End in the UK where we put it up. You have a music contractor that is able to sort of help you fill the gaps.
Cool.
There are certain people that I knew going in and was like, I would love for this person to play drums. I would love for this. And then for other things, you get sent names or recommendations, and you do your sort of due diligence to kind of find who would be a best fit. And we're so lucky to we had an amazing band in London. We have an incredible band in New York, and could not be better.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, so it's some of you, and then some help elsewhere, and then what's also the other layer is you need very deep coverage for all these seats. 8 shows a week is quite a grind. So each seat needs so many subs.
Cool.
And like working out that system of this was all new to me, kind of coming from the outside in, is sort of learning the like how to maintain your chair, and as a music director, how to sort of supervise the band on a night-to-night basis. When it's like at a certain point, it's like, oh, different bassist tonight, different cellist tonight, like different drummer. Let's make sure that everyone's on the same page musically, or it's a guitarist, a substitute guitarist. It's their first show. What are the extra cues and like little bit of TLC that I can give them to make sure that these musical moments kind of go smoothly? And that's a whole other sort of facet of the night to night sort of maintenance of the job.
That's actually, I'd love to talk more about that. As like musical director, are you playing, or are you just focusing on kind of like conducting, cueing, or what is your role exactly?
So for Juliet, and I think more and more Broadway is moving in this direction, is that I play piano. I am the keys one player. I have I have two keyboards in front of me. One is mostly a piano so that I can be very nimble and respond in real time to sort of whatever's happening. And all sorts of hodgepodge of sounds live on my top one, whether it's organ or strings or synthesizers, so many different things.
Yes.
So I am both sort of like, I keep describing it as like the used car dealership, like inflatable guy. Like you have to embody the time in your body so much because I can't always stick wave, as it were.
Right.
So I am playing, I'm responsible for firing the click to make sure that like we're, so much of pop music lives very much on a grid. And so both, I describe my rig as sort of a spaceship. I have my keyboards in front of me. I have a screen of the show in front of me. I have my sheet music. I have a computer over here that is responsible for running the tracks, and then I have a computer over here that is responsible for running my sounds.
Cool.
It is a very robust and hardy setup, but all of that the core of it is playing the piano through all of that.
Yeah, and then in terms of eye line for the rest of the musicians, how are you oriented? Are you looking over your shoulder and cueing stuff, or are they in front of you?
So I'm fairly picky, and I was pretty insistent upon being able to sort of see everyone in a round sort of what do you call it? Like a half circle sort of.
Yeah.
And so the band sort of spans around me. The drums are in a isolation booth, like a whisper room, and they're on my leftmost. And from left to right, it's our keys 2 player, our guitarist, our bassist, and then our string section, cello, viola, violin 2, violin 1. So people sort of wrap around me, and I have the ability to give eye contact to anyone. But I also have in front of me, I have a microphone that is just to the band.
Nice.
So in case I need to yell out hey, we're going around one more time, or any number of things that can happen, in the moment. For easier eyeline stuff, and I mean, so much of Broadway is built so redundantly because you need to just be so safe all the time. I also have a camera on me, so and people have mini TV screens on top of their music stands. So if you couldn't get your eyeline all the way up to me, you still sort of see TV me in your peripheral, sort of kind of giving tempo and stuff. So again, I mean, there's so many systems for every sort of thing, because you want it to be so stable and so able to navigate any contingency imaginable.
Yeah. Do you have the stage manager in your ear or anything like that, cueing things, or saying hey, this person needs a little more time vamp, or that kind of stuff happen? Yeah.
So I do. I mean, I also have a mic that goes directly to stage management.
This is spaceship.
Real-time stage management, talking, at least for us. I'm sure there could be other things, other shows that do it differently. But once we begin an act, I no longer have to communicate with stage management unless something is going very wrong and I need to tell them send someone down. Something's wrong with the guitar cable and we need help.
Yeah, right.
Or some other sort of thing. But any in the moment, this person needs longer, I would say I'm attuned enough to the show, and we built through the orchestration systems of vamps and safeties to be ooh, this is going to go long. We're going around, and I mean, again, not to get too granular, but built in musical things in our Ableton rig that enable us to be flexible for things going longer or shorter, and still kind of maintain the linear flow of everything.
That's great. That's super, super smart. And like you're saying, eight shows a week. That's just a recipe for stuff happening. It's just, there's so many shows, there's so many opportunities for something unexpected to come up.
And then, it's not even as drastic as something went wrong, but there's a robust system of understudies as well, and someone's timing of one line is just going to be different than someone's timing. Even the same person's timing on a night-to-night basis is different, and so you just need to be so flexible and so like in the moment present. I also describe it as like the skill that has helped me develop the most is like split brain of like that I can both think about playing the show and be like listening upstairs to be like, this is going longer, like tell them to go, I just the like sort of spidey sense of the timing of the show, and to be able to think about those two things simultaneously.
Yes.
It is a really like, octopus brain kind of stuff. I mean, there's so many things on a night to night. You have a new musician that joins the band. It's someone subbing for the first time. It's like, I'm playing the show. I am thinking about what's upstairs, but it's also like, oh, I need to take a note that like they should come in earlier, that needs to be played louder. And so like the amount of like misspelled iPhone notes that I have of giving sort of notes and guidance to band members is also part of it too. So it's like you need to be super present, but also able to like really split your attention in a number of different ways at a time.
That's so fascinating. And it makes sense that you're a jazz player too, because I feel like the best jazz musicians are able to do that split brain stuff where they can be reacting to very complicated stuff that's happening all around the, arrangement or improvisation, and then also be able to think in terms of improvisation themselves and building on complex structures.
Definitely.
But being in the moment, all of those things, that's the beauty of improvised music.
I found that like that skill set of like being steeped in jazz has been like so useful on like a moment to moment kind of playing thing, because of that exact thing that you're talking about of like that you're able to so like respond and regurgitate in real time, and like that's so steeped into what that culture is. And it's interesting because it's so helpful with like the music directing side of it, but also it is such a large vocabulary music wise that you also need to be able to like turn on and off at depending on the moment, because certain times those expensive chords are very useful, and certain times it's like, hey, this is 4 chords in the truth and we just got to lay it down like really, really simple here. And so like that skill set is sometimes very useful and also sometimes very dangerous. And so like navigating that has also been a part of this too, of like, and you're working with someone that hears every nuance and every detail, and like being able to be on the fly with like this voicing of this chord and this voicing of this thing makes these things speak correctly is definitely a part of it.
Cool. Yeah, that I'd love to hear more about that. So when you were bouncing ideas off of Max with arrangement, and somebody that can hear everything and is hyper aware of these hit songs because they've made them millions and millions of dollars and changed the world, and you're twisting some of them on their head and moving stuff over here. How is that actually, before it actually how it happened, how did it feel to be like pitching an idea to somebody like, hey, I tweaked this, what do you think?
I think early on it did seem a little bit daunting. Where it's like, can we do this?
Yes.
Is this allowed? Like,
exactly.
should we even be doing this? They're already perfect. Like what are we gonna say that like he hasn't said? These songs work for a reason. But I also think through working with Max and him being just the nicest person on the planet, found out really quickly that it's like a best idea wins situation, and someone that's so receptive to collaboration. And he would be the first to say that like his career is built on collaboration and being in like a very like open running and being a part of a very open kind of room. One of Max's sort of catchphrases that he imparted to the band and imparted to the cast and stuff like that. And he's like, something we say in the room all the time is dare to suck.
Which is like, yes.
Like really like, and that can only happen if you have a room that's receptive to that. And so he would be the first person to be like, swing big, like try it. Like, cool. And so you have someone that's both capable of encouraging us to make a big decision like that, and slowly you get used to that of like, hey Max, I like did a thing, which is crazy to even think about. But then you also have someone that's like, oh, I heard this is not quite right. And like he's coming down to the pit and we're tweaking the cutoff on a synthesizer and we're like delving into those sort of things. So I mean, it depends on the circumstance. Yeah. And I think early on, super daunting. And then very, very quickly, you just learn to sort of shed those things because it's not useful to the process. Totally. It's just sort of like stand in who you are and your ideas and contribute those sort of things. And some of those things land and some of those things stick. And then sometimes someone is like, ooh, maybe that, but also this. And like the sort of like yes and of it all, the like improv troupeness of it is also very, very helpful.
That's very cool. And so when you're working on a production that is as nuanced as you're saying, like a cutoff, which for the listeners, that's the frequencies that are coming through the filter. You're cutting off some of those frequencies. It's very bad way to describe that. You feel free to do a better job. I'm just trying to give it if somebody doesn't even know what a cutoff is.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this in broad strokes. I would say it's the feeling of a sound that goes from being underwater to sort of like all the way open.
There you go. That's
like
great.
To hearing it from like on the other side of a room, and then to being in the room with it.
That's perfect. That's a perfect way to.
Or if you're in your car and you have the bass knob and the treble knob, and imagine just turning the treble knob all the way down.
Yes. When you're working on the production stuff and you're tweaking all of that, did it really feel like you're producing a record when you're producing for the live? But does it feel like that?
It feels sort of like a cousin of that, and it feels like sort of similar. Like it always feels like 2/3 of those feelings in different times in different ways. Because like in the rehearsal room, it sort of feels like the version of collaborating with an artist, except it's just at such a large scale because you're bouncing ideas off the director, you're bouncing it off the choreographer. The choreographer says, I want to open this up. I need a dance moment. We need a hit here. We need something here. And so that, it felt similar to what I knew in the sense of like the very fast pace, like, what if this, what if that, what if that, and being in a room like that. But then the way that it's not like that is that, again, once you sort of find the thing you like, the clay starts to harden a little bit and you need to maintain the consistency of it because now 100 people rely on that. Like, you can't just be like riffing to riff for like just sort of mixing it up all the time. It's like, hey, we choreographed these beats to this. Like, you can't just make it up night after night because all of a sudden the dance moves won't look correct. So it's like sort of kind of yes. And then the other way that I felt like that is, I mean, we made cast recordings both in London and the U.S. And obviously sitting at a console with Max Martin recording vocals is the like everything that you want it to be and more. It's amazing.
Yeah, cool.
But the way that it's also different is like Max has made a career of these songs get developed in the room, and so he's like teaching and collaborating in real time with what these final vocal performances end up being. But now you have a room of some of the most skilled, like trained singers ever coming in to sing these, and now you have Max in a position of like I'll always remember like some of those early takes of some of these people singing these songs. They do take one, and you got to remember that like a theater actor, you only have one take. That's
exactly.
It's
Every
just
night,
what
it's
it
just
is
one
that
thing.
night.
Yeah.
So they're immersed in a tradition and a mindset where it's like, I got to kill it the first time. And so like doing a take one with Max where like someone absolutely destroys it because again, we spent time with them teaching the music. They know it up and down. It's their, like we built this arrangement around them and Max just being like, I know I'm supposed to say something here. Like this is where something goes, and just him sort of like looking for the talkback button, being like, I guess we'll do one more. Like, I guess we should for safety, like,
right.
and like, obviously there was moments where we worked on things and other stuff, but it's so different than his usual workflow as well. Totally. So like, it's always like some parts, yes, familiar, and then some parts, no, familiar, because it just is its own beast in just every single way.
Yes.
But I mean, it led to like real bucket list stuff of like on the UK cast recording, the sort of bonus track was our song One More Try being done by Jessie J. Cool. And I got to go to Abbey Road and track the piano for that. Awesome. Like that ended up like, that's just fantasy camp. I mean, that's just incredible stuff is like being there and like seeing everything and like, here's where the Beatles recorded, and here's where Raiders of the Lost Ark recorded. It's like, what is happening? Yeah, like, and for the U.S., the bonus track was a version of "Since You've Been Gone" where Kelly Clarkson sang and duetted with our Juliet in the show. I mean, it's just the stuff that has been able to happen through the like recording side of it is out of this world and so cool. And like, you're just trying to sponge up all the wisdom from Max that you possibly can.
Yes. No, totally. Actually, on that point, any like tips or kind of perspectives from that recording process with Max that you soaked up and you'd be willing to share?
Definitely. I mean, I think the biggest thing, and it sort of seems obvious, and it doesn't even seem like a trade secret in any sort of way, but just imagining sort of the person that's most committed to this is like really setting up your vocalist for success. And that is something that we learned and took with us in the recording process, and something that I really try to take as an ethos as a music director as well, of like really making sure that you set up all these things for the vocalist or actor, as it were, to have their like best performance where they don't have to like think about these other things. And that in a recording studio, that's down to all the details. That's making sure that someone's there, making sure the mic's the right height. They're not even have to think about that. Someone's that's there, that water is there. And like that, setting up every sort of thing so that they can, from take one, from like even just warming up, that it's good to go and that you're getting keepers from the start. And like, you know, someone like Max has nothing to prove at all. Like, he has every right to be as like minutia, like overbearing as possible, but instead is like, hey, I can't even get to that if I can't get this person comfortable to be the best version of themselves. And I think that he facilitates that environment. And like, yeah, the fact that like Max Martin on Talkback is like making sure that they have exactly what they need before we start. And like, I just think that's so of critical importance to take with you. Because how are you going to get the performance that you want? And I mean, this could go true for if you're recording guitar by yourself, or like any number of things that have a microphone in front of them, or any show. But like, you can't set yourself up. You should set yourself up for success. Like, and if you don't, how can you expect to give your best foot forward? And I think that's just something to watch someone at that level maintain it was very humbling and inspiring at the same time. It's very, very just nice to learn and remember.
It's great. It resonates with something that a guy named Phil, who's the engineer for Rick Rubin's sessions, said they'd show up the day before the band even comes. They check everything, get everything all dialed, so the band doesn't even have to deal with that. They come in and they create. And I thought, wow, what a lovely thing as a musician.
And it's the mindset you get into. I mean, it's the difference between staying on your friend's couch and checking into a hotel where they say like, hello, like they know your name, or like, I mean, it's a different level. And I think it's also something that like dollars to donuts in terms of ratio of like time spent to things gleaned is an absolute no-brainer to do.
Yes.
It doesn't take that much work to sort of just like take care of those little details and like, make sure the patch bay, like the things are right. The last thing a vocalist needs is just start going, and like all of a sudden it's like, ooh, there's like something, like hold on, just hold tight for a second.
Check all these
like
cables.
like you just can't expect your best. And obviously some of these things become a luxury. I fully recognize that. Like, not every like band that's loading into a van has the luxury of like their own sound tech, like tuning the guitars. But even if it's just you out there, like doing that sort of extra level of stuff to ensure your own performance, whether it's just you plugging into GarageBand or whatever it may be, to just set yourself up for like a really being in that sort of like performance mindset, to be there, like that if you're tracking something in, like perhaps your email shouldn't also be open, like just like really like commit trust ball into that moment and being present in it. And I think it's nice when you have other people that facilitate that, and I consider that part of my job. But like it's just a big part of it, big part of everything, and trying to get the best performance you can.
And there are actionable ways to do it for yourself, like the night before studio thing. Say that you're only tracking yourself in your home studio. You can set up all your stuff the night before with the cup of tea before you go to bed. You wake up in the morning, you start your session, you already did all the work the day before, so you you can hit the ground running. That kind of stuff. I try to do that too, where I don't have a very big space, so that makes it a little easier. But that's part of the reason why I bought this little thing, so that I'm
there you go,
boop, boop, done, ready to cut.
Yeah, I also think about it like I know myself in like certain like laziness / inertia, call it whatever you want, and like over the years I've like built myself some sort of like templates that can like save me a certain amount of time, where it's like if I'm in a flow or like grateful enough to be in the room with an artist, the last thing I want to be do is like sifting through stuff or like looking for the thing that I want. It's like, no, like put those things in place so they're here for me. I have my like my vocal chain set up, ready to go, like just ready. And again, that's something that doesn't have to be at like the mega like Ocean Way or Power Station, whatever, insert legendary studio here. That can just be yourself. Like set that thing up so that you can just like have your session ready to roll. And I think like anything to reduce the latency between your like idea and your performance and how it actually gets marked down or performed outward in front of an audience is time well spent.
Yes, totally agree. Completely resonate with that. I'm going to ask you a question because these are things that I've never known and may never know. The feeling of getting the Grammy nomination, the feeling of getting the Tony nomination, how do they compare? How are they different? How does it even happen? How do you even find out? You get an email? Does it come in the mail? You get a golden envelope? Like, how does that work?
Nominations happen. I mean, first of all, it's the largest answer is profound gratitude. That's like the easiest full stop. The logistically is, the day where they announce those things, and it's like either some like kind of taped event that's like a live stream that's happening, and everyone's refreshing stuff, and then a thousand text messages all come in at once.
Yes.
But it's amazing. It's so like there's kind of multiple kinds of affirmation that you sort of seek out when you make stuff. And I mean, the first and I think the biggest thing is like putting out to people. I mean, statues and hardwares are it's very nice, but like in a vacuum, it doesn't really do anything. You still have to like connect with humans. So like audience, I think is still like such a first and foremost kind of thing. And that's the affirmation that's like the strongest. And then the other thing, which, a Grammy, a Tony, these other things are very nice, is to see that like acceptance and recognition from your peer group, from people that make it like you. And that's really nice because it's with a body of people that know pretty accurately the work that goes in to do that.
Yes.
And so that's also sort of a certain kind of different lane of that affirmation and kind of like, that really like positive kind of acceptance. It's amazing to hear your name for that stuff. I mean, it's amazing to hear your name called and go up too. It's bananas. I mean, I am a pretty temper my expectations kind of person. So in my wildest dreams, I don't think about it. It's just happy to be there.
Yeah.
But to go up is obviously a big thrill. When we won the Grammy in 2016, like you sort of like, you're on stage. Tim gives this like wonderful acceptance speech, which if you have a second on YouTube, go find it.
Cool.
He off the dome, like is just giving the most like heartfelt and like beautifully eloquent speech. The rest of the day we got approached being like, "You guys are the kids guy. That was such a good speech."
That's awesome.
But like you sort of like, what's funny, and I don't know, here's a little insider tip. You get that statue and someone very nicely shepherds you backstage, and then you give it right back because. At least for the Grammys, I didn't take the hardware home for the Tonys, but for the Grammys, they're not engraved, like because those results are sealed, like they can't pre-do it, so they're secret. So you like, what's funny is you get handed the one, you get the just backstage enough to not be seen, and someone's like, okay, thank you, and then there's like a table of Grammys, of blank Grammys, and then the rest of where you go, the rest of the day is all blank Grammys because it's like step and repeat photo shoots of all these Grammy things, but they're blank.
Yes.
So really, really funny.
That is funny.
But I was in the line. You sort of end up in this like receiving line, as it were.
Okay.
And I was with Buddy Guy and Bella Fleck.
No way. That's awesome.
And it's like, I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
I mean, we just won, which is like obviously in the stratosphere, like not in the same like gravitational pull anymore. And like, then it's like, oh my God, like talking with Bella Fleck. Like, keep it together.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if I have like a necessarily like great answer, but it's just all things firing all the time. It's all very, very, very nice.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Thank you for the behind the scenes, look. And that is fascinating. That you kind of like you get the Grammy, now you're in this process now of like you have this stuff over fee, you're going over here, you're with these people.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Is there like a special after party for the people that win, or is it kind of more segmented?
No, I mean there are like definitely like I mean that whole process of like going back and after you've won is its own sort of like space.
Makes total sense. Yeah.
The best advice I got going into the Grammys, and I think this is probably true for any award show, maybe not the Oscars because I think there are tables, but people are like, bring food. There is nothing there, and it's a long day. It's a very long day. So if you watch that Grammy speech, you should absolutely know that in my pockets are Cliff Bars.
Yes.
Like,
that's awesome.
Like that, and it was the best advice I got, and it was super true. I mean, you get there, it's like there's the pre-telecast and the telecast and time in between it. Like the day starts at like 1 p.m., 2 p.m., and then the televised thing is 7 p.m., and there is not food, and you're like in this place for so long. So the biggest benefit of getting to win was that I think there was like water and maybe a bar, I don't remember, but like just the second to be like, oh my God, thank you, like. Sustenance.
Here's your reward.
Yeah.
Grammy, but more importantly, sustenance. That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then one final question. In terms of things that you find special about music, if somebody was just considering picking up an instrument, or say that they're even older, like a 70-year-old retiree, and they're like, I've always been curious about music. What would you say to them to kick off their journey? Not necessarily to become a professional or anything, but just to engage with this thing that we both love so much.
I mean, anyone thinking about it, you should definitely do it, full stop. Like the like slice of the pie of what it makes of your life can be any number of things, but I don't think anyone that like can play the piano or strum the guitar or play the kazoo regrets that time spent. So I endorse it full stop. It's one of the best things ever. It is both time for you introspectively, because getting good at something requires practice. And that discipline is, I think, a super valuable life skill. I mean, that's why we sometimes impose it upon kids. I don't know if that's always necessarily the best thing. I think I still do it because I was never really forced to do it. And so it is like both self-care and like ambitious and an independent level. And then if you want to open up the circle, it is a language that you can speak with other people. It is like our connection to others, both in terms of making it and what it takes from you at an interpersonal level, in terms of what it means to collaborate, the joy of like making sound with other people in real time. I mean, I feel like there's very few other like pure like caveman experiences that like hold up like that. Like you're doing something that like we are designed to do. Like it is so nice. And then also just the like life skill of collaboration is worth it. Like the idea of like, I have an idea and like someone else being like, that's amazing. Or someone else being like, what if we did this with it too? I mean, that is like such valuable, whether you're 7 or 70, that's like a very good skill set to have, of like being able to work in the moment with other people and the joy that comes from doing it. I think music is something that can be for you, and you can just sit at home and play the piano or whatever you want, drum set, and insert instrument here. But it is also the like, I don't know, trying to like, I always try to frame it as a way of like, to like reach out and sort of touch the void. Like, music allows you to be something that's bigger than just you. If you played a show or like wrote a song and like had the blessing of doing something that even just one person liked, like I try to like flip it around. I think of how much music has meant to me, and like you could give that to other people. Like if you choose to make music, that is something that you could also give. Like think of one concert that you liked or one song that you played on whatever, and like that is now something that you could give to others. That's a joy that you could give to others. And I think it's really worth doing in every single facet. And it's like, there's just something for everyone of like, if you're sort of like more computer and technology minded, like play with synthesizers or like try to get into that sort of thing. If you're more like into craftsmanship, I mean, there's so many opportunities to like, once you can get one notch deeper and realize the like love and labor it takes to make these things that make music. I mean, it's just such a big tent and there's room for everybody in it. And I just couldn't endorse it more because it's the only thing in my life that I like am passionate about or know anything about. And so you're talking with like the ultimate kind of like, spokesperson for it. It has given me everything good in my life. I owe to it, from like meeting the people I've been lucky enough to collaborate with, to meeting the friends I've been lucky enough to make from it, from taking me around the world. Like music has brought me to every place from Hawaii to London to I played at the White House. Like it's just bananas. And that's, it can just bring you so many places. Or you could decide that you don't want to do that and you could just sit at home and try to learn a song that you like or write a song that's been in your head. And it is all of those things in between. And couldn't love it more.
That's a great place to end, Dom. Thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me. It's so nice to talk to you and meet you.
Yeah, likewise. And hopefully we can meet in person someday here.
Absolutely.
Would you point people to check out your website? Where would be a great place for people to kind of keep track of you and stay involved?
Super easy. I am keyofdom.com, and it's Key of Dom on social media stuff. I'm not the most active social media person, but that's where you can find me if you want to try and, write a message. It's very easy to also write me a message from my website as well. So that's very Key of Dom.
Perfect. And we'll throw that in the description for this podcast as well. You can find my stuff at scoobertdoobert.pizza. Sure, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll pick this up again someday, hopefully soon. Thanks so much,
Thanks
Tom.
so much. Thanks for talking to you, Scoob. Nice to see you.
Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.